100 years they do this?
While the Centennial Celebration would technically take place every 100 years, the history of aviation in Alaska is precisely that old. Ever since the state's first recorded flights in Fairbanks in 1913, aviation has gone on to become an integral part of Alaska. Chuck Miller is a pilot and the vice president of the Alaska Airshow Association Board of Directors. He says given the significance of the milestone, this was something they all readily agreed was deserving of celebration.
About 8 or 9 months ago, we got the idea that we should be celebrating that first flight in Alaska, and as dependent as we are on aviation, the milestone of this 100 years. So we decided we would try and gather up as many old airplanes as we could, and at different spots throughout the state, different airplanes will come out. But most of the airplanes that are starting the event are museum-based airplanes and Wings of Freedom-based airplanes.
On Friday afternoon, Homer saw the first of the 4 planes pass over the Homer Airport and taxi onto the runway shortly after. The aircraft on display were 2 North American T-6 Texans, a Canadian variation on the T-6 called a Harvard, and a Stinson L-13. Missing from the lineup was the famous Japanese Zero, which Miller regretfully admitted they had hoped to bring to Homer, but backed out as they were unsure it would be able to make the flight. In attendance to see these lighter-than-air pieces of history were many of Homer's community members, including author and former pilot Jim Reardon, who remarked on both the craftsmanship of the aircraft and its own history as an aviator.
They're museum quality. Those that are here are beautiful. One of my planes, the Avid Flyer, when I quit flying, I donated it to the museum, and they've got it hanging up there in the museum in Anchorage. It has been a very big part of my life in Alaska. I've written a number of books with bush pilots, and the fact that I had a license to fly helped me write those books.
Once all the planes were safely landed, the pilots offered any kids in attendance the opportunity to climb inside the cockpits of either of the T-6s. One young man said that despite the vast number of gadgets, he could probably maybe pick it up.
It looked pretty complicated. Levers and buttons and gauges. After he explained it a little bit, the gauges were pretty, not very hard to understand, but it still would take quite a lot of practice.
The event continued throughout the day, culminating with a reception at the Pratt Museum. Miller said although they did indeed plan to stay the night in Homer, they didn't plan to stay put long.
We're going to stay the night here and enjoy your beautiful town, and then we're off to Iliamna for kind of a pit stop, and then we'll be in King Salmon overnight. And then from there we go to Dillingham and then to Bethel. It's wonderful to have the support we've had from all the communities on our stops. We've got 22 towns we're going to visit, cities and towns, and so it's really nice to have everyone come out and be interested in aviation. It's beautiful.
The Alaska Aviation Centennial Celebration will continue throughout the month of June and will conclude July 14th at the Alaska Aviation Museum in Anchorage. In Homer, I'm Peter Shepard.